Have you ever tried to start a new habit, but you just couldn't get the ball rolling and it was hard to get momentum to get that habit started? Well, if so, this episode and this series on habits is for you. Welcome to the Claim Your Day podcast. Here, it's all about taking full advantage of the time we have today and becoming intentional with our actions so we each can have the impact we want. If you want to stop drifting through life and start directing your life, and you're open to a short podcast from someone who's working at the exact same thing, then welcome. You're in the right place, my friend. Hi, I'm your host, Nick Mazey. To respect your time and so you can claim your day, let's dive right in. Hello, my friend, and welcome. Welcome to the Claim Your Day podcast. This is episode 32, and we're right in the second episode of the habit advantage, in creating these habits that can ultimately help you to guide your life to go where you want it to go, can help you to claim your day, have that impact that you want to have, and really just ultimately to build your best self intentionally. And you're going to do that by the habits that you create. In just that last episode, we talked a little bit about being intentional and really choosing the areas of life that we focus on, choosing the habits and how we get started on that. If you missed that episode, make sure you go back and check it out. Great way to not miss too many episodes is to go ahead and subscribe to the Claim Your Day podcast. Today, as I mentioned in the last episode, gave a little bit of a teaser, and we're going to talk about starting small so you can grow strong. And it's all about how our habits can build on top of one another, and ultimately create this kind of compounding effect with our habits. Quick plug. If you haven't checked out the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, definitely go check that out. It's not all about habits, but it just seemed to come out right there. Today, we're thinking about, how sometimes it's easy to think, and this is a little bit of a trap, Be honest. Have you ever got caught thinking that those big changes you want to make in your life are going to require large leaps? Have you ever been there? I get there some, and in fact, and some of the people that I know seem to get there a lot, because it just seems like the small steps, those tiny habits and little actions aren't really going to make that big a difference when you have a big change or a huge goal you want to accomplish. Well, if that's you, quick plug again, go read the book, The Compound Effect, but then also listen to this episode. And also John Maxwell's 15 Laws of Growth dives into the law of the ladder. That's a great amount of information there to help you too. Where really it's those small steps that we take can build on one another. And think about it. It's like the rungs of a ladder. One small step is not going to get you to the top of that building, but rung after rung, continuing to climb it, it builds on top of one. They build on top of one another. And also that's ultimately where you're going to have that sustainable growth. What you can continue to do is by taking those small, tiny steps, consistently building on top of one another. Think about it. Have you ever heard of somebody learning a new language? And they didn't just magically one day not know any of it, and the next day they can speak fluently. No. In fact, trying to do all that I'd say it's impossible, but talk about overwhelming. Trying to have that massive goal that you want to have and trying to achieve it all in one fell swoop, not a snowball's chance. It's just not going to happen. But you know what you can do? You can learn one new word a day, or maybe two or three. It doesn't have to be just one. But you can start small, and you can make some progress, and you can start in a way that's manageable for you. So think about this. Think about your ambitious. Do you have any ambitious goals? Big things that you want to accomplish. Things that you want, how you want to live your life. Some big changes you want to make. Places you want to go. A job that you want to get. What kind of ambitious goals do you have? And do you ever feel like sometimes they might be too big to be? It's like too daunting to even begin because they're so big. And the actions you're going to be able to take today aren't going to get you a significant distance toward achieving that goal. Well, that's where the power of the habit comes from. That's where the power of intentionally developing positive habits that align with your values and your goals. That way, on a day-by-day basis, you can start with that incredibly small step, but it's going to get you a little bit further down the road. And then the next day you can add on to it and add on to it. And over time, you can actually develop some momentum. So your steps you're taking are bigger, but by doing it on a small daily basis, those small manageable steps, it's going to be easier for you to sustain that growth that you're making. That's where that compound effect comes in. That's where you're able to build on it and you're able to keep it. You're able to keep it. I mean, think about it. Sometimes these people that win the lottery, a few years later, they're more broke than they started off with. Because along the way, they didn't develop the habits that they needed to do to sustain that level of financial success. It came in one fell swoop, but they didn't do that internal work, that groundwork, to be able to maintain it. Versus someone that acquires wealth slowly and surely, see, they've developed those habits along the way. So when they see those results, they're able to keep those results. You want you to think of the growth that you're experiencing and achieving those goals as a ladder. Let's use this analogy or visualization just for a second. And that each thing that you need to do in order to accomplish that goal, to live that life, is just one small step on that ladder. Now, you can't jump 15 steps up. It doesn't work like that. Instead, you have to take one at a time. And as you take one at a time, it doesn't matter the fact that those steps are actually pretty small. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you take one at a time and you keep doing it. And that growth, that internal growth that you're going to experience, that external growth of achieving those goals, that all comes one step at a time. And think about these tiny habits as just a small step that will continue to build as you do them on a day-by-day basis to ultimately get you to those outcomes, that life, and just be able to live how you want to live. Claim your day and make the most of it. Now, there's a little bit of science behind tiny habits, and there's a whole lot of benefits. I know they seem like they're just so small sometimes. Like in the last episode, I talked about if you had where you wanted to improve your health and you knew you needed to start exercising more, and you hadn't been exercising really, to be honest, if you hadn't, then doing 30 minutes of strength training or exercise a day, every day, that's probably too large a leap. And I know we want change. We want it now. We want all the positive benefits of all the work that it's going to take, but we want those benefits now. And in order to do that, we're going to take a large leap. I really caution you against that. There's actually a lot of good evidence and a lot of good reasons why tiny habits are better. That could be, one of them is that it reduces resistance. Half the time, getting going and getting started is the hardest thing. There's a saying I used to say, I used to have a lot, it was just, motivation is not going to hit you on the couch. It's going to get started after you do. And so having that low barrier to entry of just aiming for a tiny habit, it reduces that resistance. It helps you to get moving. It makes it safer. It makes it less scary. It makes it just easier and more pleasant to get started. The biggest trick is going to be getting over any prejudice you have against a tiny step, against a tiny habit. If you can just forget that just for a second, just take my word that your actions and behaviors can build on top of one another. And over time, those small steps can take you a great distance. If you can just believe those words just a little bit, and then maybe set aside any judgment you have against tiny steps and small habits, just put that aside for a second and just believe that over time, your actions can build on one another and the positive results can compound. Because with that, having a low barrier to entry and reducing that resistance, that's the power of this tiny habit that you're going to start. It just makes it easier to get started. And once you get started, my friend, like I said, motivation is not going to hit you on the couch. It's going to start after you do. Once you get started, you're going to feel a little bit better about it. And after a few days or a few weeks, you're going to see some progress and you're going to have some of those early wins. You're going to have some of those early wins where if you're getting exercise, you're going to start to feel a little bit better. You're going to start to feel a tiny bit stronger. You have a little bit more energy. Or if you say, hey, I'm going to develop a healthy eating habit, you're going to get some of those benefits. Maybe you're developing a reading habit because you want to get back into your Bible or reading some other personal development books or something like that. And you're going to your mindset's going to start to improve and change. And that's some of those early wins. That's another huge, huge benefit of developing tiny habits going in the direction that you want is those early wins. So not only do you have that low barrier to entry, that's easier to get started, so you're able to get the ball rolling. You get a little bit of momentum. You get some of those early wins and you feel good about it. And then boom, before you know it, then that motivation's going to come in. And, and you're already developing consistency. See, there's no compounding without consistency. There's no sustainable growth without consistency. And really, there's no payoff without that consistency. And all those things, the easier to get started, the developing the wins, the momentum, the motivation, the consistency, they all come from those tiny habits. So and don't laugh at that small tiny step. Don't laugh at it, my friend. That can be your ticket to claiming your day and living the life you want to live. And those where they build on top of one another, whether if it's, hey, you're gonna develop a little bit of an exercise routine or changing your daily eating habits, or you're gonna spend more time with friends or family or any of these things that of habits and areas of life that are important to you, or maybe it's finances. Think about this one. This is an easy one. It's not easy to do, but it's easy for the illustration that I'm gonna try to give you. Is that how one action repeated over time builds? So yes, if you start exercising a little bit and you do that every day, even if it's a tiny bit, it's going to build. If you're eating healthier or doing other things, it's going to build. Finances too. Think about it. If you're saving a tiny bit of money and making that money work for you, you put it in a high interest savings account, or investing in an index fund. I'm not going to give investing advice. I'm not qualified for that. I know it works for me. Um, and what works for me, honestly, is the more boring and repeatable habits I have in any area of my life, especially finances, the more boring, positive habits I have in that area, boom, it gives me the results because they compound. So if you're slowly and consistency putting a tiny bit of money away, let's say just even in a savings account, you put a tiny bit of money away week after month, it builds, right? It builds. That's the compound effect. But as you might see your finances grow by continuing to save more, continue to save money, repeated over a period of time. As that grows, just in your finances, it grows in any other area of your life. Learning, fitness, health, mental health, and well-being. Developing your mindset. Any area of life can have a positive benefit from the positive habits compounding over time. It's just your choice to be intentional with it. That's all it is. They will accumulate. Those small steps will build on one another. One thing that's really important, though, if you want to be consistent, then basically consistency means you're going to keep doing it, right? You got it, and that means you're going to have to be persistent and patient. All right. I know how important these words are, but I don't like them. Patience, I struggle with a whole lot more. Let's be really transparent here. I'm gonna show my cards. I struggle with being patient. Persistence, not so much. But basically, that means I just keep doing what some of the positive things I know I need to do because I'm a little bit hard headed about it. Unfortunately, sometimes I don't have the best attitude, and that's why I can't really claim to be that patient. But deep down, you've got to know that these things are true. That if you do positive steps over time and you're persistent, then it's going to build and it's going to help you to live that life you want to live. Being patient is huge. This is an area I'm definitely working on myself. But being patient is because even though you know that these positive habits can help build on one another and help you to live that life you want, being patient means that you have a good attitude because you know that value is coming. You are paying into it, you're paying it forward, you're doing the work, and the results will come. And you can have patience knowing that the results that you're working for are going to come your way. So, with that, today's action step, it's a continuation of the last episode. It is. It really is. In the last episode, we talked about identifying that area of life that's really important to you, that's important that you have some growth in, and identifying as one tiny habit that you're going to start doing. Today, in this episode, I'm recommending that you look at that habit, review it a little bit. How's it going? If you just listen to this, if you listen to these episodes as they come out, then it's not long ago, just a day or so. Or I guess, I don't know if this is coming out on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but anywho, not that far away. Take that tiny habit that you identified in that last episode, and is it as small and easy as it needs to be? Is it? Was it hard for you to get started on that habit? Okay, then maybe aim a little bit smaller. Maybe can you make it smaller? That's okay. Right here, we're looking at, like I said, we want you to be able to get started. I want you to be able to develop that easy, uh, really early win. I want you to develop that consistency, the motivation, the momentum, and all that comes when you have that habit as tiny as possible. So that habit that you just started, that you decided in the last episode, is it small enough? Is it small enough? Can you make it small? Because now you're going to focus on just getting really consistent with that tiny habit. Commit to performing that tiny habit consistently every day this week. You've already started it a little bit. You've already got the ball rolling. Now go ahead and commit to performing it consistently every day this week. Focus on just showing up. You don't got to do it perfect. You don't got to do it huge. Just show up and keep showing up. And that persistence, that perseverance, that's going to come through. And that's going to get you the results you're looking for over time. Because over time, those small steps, they're going to lead to bigger results than those large leaps would have. Those large leaps you can't maintain, but you can maintain and sustain the small steps to be able to get the results that you want. You keep them. Small beginnings can lead to significant endings. Think about that. You might start small, but it's really can lead to the significant impact and outcome that you want. You to focus on being consistent. Think consistency over intensity. You're going to be consistent. And my friend, you're going to get rolling. You're going to be moving forward. You're going to develop those habits that you want so that you can live your best life. You can claim your day, live your values out, live out what's most important to you, your life, your family, and have that impact that you want. And it starts with developing those habits. It's going to help you to live that. All right. Here's to you, my friend. Thank you for listening to this episode and joining in. Make sure you catch the next one. We're going to continue talking about habits. You can subscribe so you don't miss any of those episodes. Or go to nickmazy.com. You can listen to episodes there, as well as check out the Your Intentional Day formula. It's simple little worksheets you can fill out to help you get really intentional with your actions that you do on a day-by-day basis. All right. Here's to you, my friend. Talk to you again soon.